Thanks, Quresh and the VRSI for the wonderful invitation. When we talk about diabetes, traditionally been talking about the two forms, the proliferative and non-proliferative retinopathy. But today, in this particular talk of 8 minutes, we're talking mostly about the DME. And why DME? DME was most probably 20 years ago was not a big concern for us, and these are the answers. We did a 2-cohort study of hospital-reported self-known type 2 diabetes between 2001 and 2011, 10 years apart. We find that kind of similar cohort, there is a change of the pattern of retinopathy. While in earlier, there's more of PDR, proliferative diabetic retinopathy. Now today, more patients with NPDR report to the hospital, which is a good news, most probably because there is a lot of awareness of diabetes. People are aware they must come early. Maybe diabetologists are sending the patients early, so should be happy. But problem is the following. Problem is that while in 2001, more patients with the PDR had a poorer vision. Today, in 2011 cohort, more patients with NPDR have got a poor vision, and that is attributable to diabetic macular edema. We also found a lot of variables that, especially the paper is under publication now, that hypertension is one important factor for the decreased vision in the patient reporting with the DME. That brings us to a question that at earlier time and continuing to be most often, patients with a diabetic macular edema decreased vision receive a photocoagulation, and that's what the picture is, that a patient with the exudates over here, macular edema by the OCT, it was roughly 300 micrometer and do the laser. Today we will not do a intensive laser which we do 20-30 years ago. With that laser in 3 to 4 months time, usually edema goes away and the vision improves, particularly near vision improves, which is required for the patient, for the people who work in the computer from, let's say, this patient from 2025 and 8 to 2020 and 6, which is good news. But in last decade or so, we have got more options because most times the patients with a central involved diabetic macular edema, you cannot treat the way you should treat before. The one I showed you before was a exudates not involving the center, which was easy to treat, otherwise you cannot. And the options are today, the game changers are one. We have in our armamentarium the optical current tomography, which can precisely measure the quantum of macular edema instead of just the subjective, also objective. And two, we have got two important things, like I heard from Professor Jagat Ram about the corticosteroid in a patient receiving cataract surgery. Similarly, we have got also anti-VEGF. Both anti-VEGF and corticosteroid, either in alone or in combination, are useful for controlling diabetic macular edema, which is otherwise not possible to receive a laser. These are the different studies. Now we have shown here the top panel are all highlighted. The yellow are all steroids, different forms. Triamcinolone started much early, now discontinued or taken over by fluoroquinolone and dexamethasone, and or at least the other two, the fluoroquinolone and dexamethasone, are FDA approved, both in last year September and both in September. The lower panel has got the Avastin, Lucentis, and Eylea, and of the two, again, two are approved with the FDA again in 2012 and 2014. So at least now, of the 6, 4 are approved, 2 are licensed and being used for control of diabetic macular edema in one way or other. Now, we know that triamcinolone, if temporarily, reduces the edema, but the glaucoma is always in concern. In our own study, 26% of the people who received IVTA have glaucoma and sometimes uncontrollable. Compared to that, other two newer steroids like a fluoroquinolone and dexamethasone are relatively better off, and that is how FDA approved it. But however, glaucoma remains a concern in the patients who are prone for or could be, so it may require. But then the good part is that the dramatic reduction of macular edema requires repetition only after a few months compared to the anti-VEGF. The anti-VEGF Avastin to Eylea in between the Lucentis all work well, except that Eylea has required injections once in 2 months after your first 5 injections as per the recent publication, and ranibizumab Lucentis after monthly injections after first 3 injections, Avastin it is. But however, in India, most times people after a loading dose do always a PRN. And these are the trend which happened in a PAT survey published from time to time by ASRS, the American Society of Retina Specialists, that if you divide the last decade, every 3 years between 2002 and 5 and 14, we changed that the first line of therapy in a patients with a phakic diabetic macular edema vision of 2050, it has changed from predominantly laser in 2018 to currently one of those two anti-VEGFs. If you count DME refractory to Lucentis, most choice today will be steroid or repetition of another anti-VEGF, not the same anti-VEGF. Example, go to Eylea or Avastin. Similarly, for clinically significant macular edema with the OCT, but vision is 20/20, while people always thought that laser could be a choice, but today they also think that 1/3 of the time you can think of something else like anti-VEGF, or sometimes you can wait and watch for a while, and if the patient is compliant to return to the clinic, then you can take again and again. And finally, the top point is that how many times you can do anti-VEGF. The published data says that roughly 7 to 9 injections for Lucentis or 3 to 6 for Eylea. The European guidelines, which is based on this, is based on the diabetic macular edema, whether the center is involved or not involved. If it is center is not involved, follow the ETDRS guidelines like you saw in one of those slides. If it is involved, then vision loss or less vision loss, and depend on that, swing between anti-VEGF and steroid. The one published in Ophthalmology 2011 about based on the RESTORE data is very busy slides, but then the RESTORE data suggests that you actually treat depending on how they respond. This is what the RESTORE data is, that 7 injections and followed by 24 months, and based on how they respond to anti-VEGF treatment, because of lack of time we'll not go to all details. Similarly, what we published, the DRCR-NET data is similarly is mostly based on the Lucentis, and again depending on the vision and the center involvement on the OCT and the response. The DRCR-NET considered that ranibizumab either prompt or deferred. The recent 5P data suggests that if deferred is not as bad as prompt, but that is why they say that you can defer the laser instead of giving the laser all the time to all the patients. We published assay-specific data, and we are mostly by default by European data, that we talk about the two things, clinical and OCT based, and also look at the vision and vision not good and not good, center involved, not involved. If center is involved and vision is more than 20/30 or original getting good vision, then we said that we don't have to do an Avastin or anti-VEGF. Always think about using ETDRS guidelines, not responding only to anti-VEGF, however center is involved, vision is less than 20/36/9, then one should consider anti-VEGF always. This was Asia-Pacific data. Indian naming guidelines are based on some things not yet published, but we are working on it, that good vision and poor vision and good vision, center involved, not involved. If the center is good vision, center involved, not involved, good vision, observe or treat. And when you treat, think about laser first, anti-VEGF next. If it's a poor vision, then depend on the fluorescein, which was not considered in earlier 3 publications. We think about that leak is focal or leak is diffuse. If it is leak is focal, most probably we can treat them with the laser. If it is diffuse, then no option other than anti-VEGF. We can swing between the 3, the improved, stable or worse. If it's worse, obviously go to either steroid or anti-VEGF. If it's improved, then look at this stable or not stable. These data hopefully are working to publish it very soon. Once it published by Indian guideline, many other things will go. Very quickly, this is how the clinical tips for a day-to-day practice. We will not able to go time because I have already crossed the time. When IGO publishes it, we'll think about it. The frequently asked questions are important. The important question that when does actually one stop or continue? And the first important question is redundant now? Answer is most probably no. And then how does one reduce the treatment course? Again, answer is no. Most probably is an ongoing process. But most publications say that after 3 years, most probably number of injections come down to so little that one can become stable if the blood pressure and A1C are also under control. Thank you very much.